quick point of order just before we start. Got a message here from a Mr. F. Gasolfi who says, if there's any Sunderland defenders here who are fit and available on Saturday afternoon, please get in touch. So we'll see what that's all about. Been watching some clips today, Nick, of Omar Alderete. He's either putting his head on a cross or shooting from 40 yards. So I think we might have a bit of fun with that one, but nice to see centre-back making a little bit of progress. I think that was one we were all starting to get a bit nervous about.
Is he a new Naira Nosworthy? Naira Nosworthy for the 21st century. Well, he comes with a good CV, and Paraguayans we've had in the past have done all right, the few that we've had. I think the key this week is everybody will be concerned about is getting defenders and a striker in before the weekend, and getting some business done with some experience and some quality players, just to sort of put the final pieces. Probably not the final pieces actually, because there's still a few weeks of the window left. But those final pieces before the season actually kicks off, in place before they kick off against West Ham. Because I think at the moment, still feel that they're a couple of players short if they're really going to make a fist of it at the weekend.
How is everyone feeling about West Ham on Saturday? Good. Hands up if you think we're going to win.
Confident?
Yeah, like it. Not worried about the defenders? No. Yeah. Good energy. Seal's fine. Yeah. What do you make of that, Nick? Because my feeling is that even if we do get a centre half, which looks very likely in the next couple of days, I think it's going to be too soon to chuck them in. Alderete has barely played in pre-season, so I think it's going to be probably sealed. To be fair, I think he deserves it, doesn't he, for what he's done in pre-season? It's obviously going to be a bit of a risk and it's going to be a big step up, but I think he deserves that chance, doesn't he?
I think he deserves it. He's a good player. I think we saw before he was injured last year that there is a player there. I do still have concerns. I think West Ham is a very good opening game. I think is a very good barometer for the level at which Sunderland will need to play at this season if they feel that they're going to survive in the Premier League. West Ham will afford them that sort of benchmark, if you like, of the quality that they will need. It's a good opening fixture. And a lot of people have said about the first three fixtures, they're very good opening three fixtures, which they are. Because in one sense, they're fairly benign. You look at those three teams and you feel they're going to offer you a chance. The changes that Brentford have had, losing the manager, Keith Andrews coming in, losing key players. Burnley, a bit of an unknown quantity, but judging by what happened last time round, I think people are of the feeling that Burnley will be one of the teams that will struggle this season. And West Ham, we look back at last season, there was a bit of turmoil. I do think Graham Potter, he's not a bad coach. He's had a good pre-season. He's got players in. They're getting more players in. I don't think they'll be necessarily the basket case they were to an extent last year. So it's a very, very good opening fixture. And it's at home. I think that's important as well. So they've got a home fixture against a team which I guess we all think will probably finish mid-table. So it is, as I say, a good barometer. I'm still just a little concerned about the fact that Sunderland aren't scoring a lot of goals and they are conceding goals still. And
it's not a great mix, generally speaking.
It's not a great mix. And for all the quality they've brought in, Benno and I were having this conversation yesterday. I would have rather have seen the first team play Rayo Vallecano yesterday than play Augsburg. I think the Spanish team would have given them a better test than the Germans, and I think it would have been I think we would have seen it would have been better for the team to have had that test because that was quality. They were quality yesterday, and they played two teams, and then they made 10 changes in the second half, and if anything, they got stronger in the second half. But so. I'm optimistic. I do think the signings are good. I think they've signed some real talent. When you look at the individuals that they've signed, some of them really shine. Xhaka, of course, stands out. But I've seen glimpses in pre-season, not that I've seen every game. I've seen glimpses from players who think, yeah, there is something there. They've got something. They've got a bit of magic. But it's all got to gel. I mean, I'm still a little concerned. Mienda's going to start the season probably up front, and he hasn't scored yet. And I think he'd have been desperate for a goal at the weekend, and that's probably why he took the penalty. Still a little concerned we haven't got anybody who can take a bloody penalty.
We're not talking penalties.
Well,
I did
have a conversation with Wilson Isidore about it yesterday, And he says, we've been practicing a lot. We've been doing lots on penalties. And well, it's not coming to fruition, is it? Because it missed on Saturday. Look, I think the big thing as well is that pre-season, whilst it's a sort of marker of where you are as a team and a club, the way that Régis Le Bris works, I don't think you can read too much necessarily into results or certain aspects of performances. He sort of trotted out to me after the Real Betis game that he's not concerned. Last season we lost 5 games on the bounce and we were okay. It's a sort of his fallback now. That's his little mantra that when things aren't going quite right, well, we lost 5 games last season, we're okay. So I think there's a sort of trust element there as well with him. So I think he's, looking at these pre-season games, he's clearly been looking at various aspects of the team, where he feels the strengths are. And he's not, he doesn't shy away from the fact that they need to be more clinical. We were saying that yesterday, we're just not clinical enough. And that is, that to a degree is down to the fact they haven't got an out-and-out striker.
So just to wrap up, you're optimistic apart from the attacking, the defending, and the penalties?
In a nutshell, as I say, they lost 5 games last season and they won, they'll be fine.
I mean, I thought we were decent against Betis, and I thought we were very good about Augsburg, taking your point that they weren't as good as Rayo Vallecano. What a team Rayo Vallecano are, by the way. Superb. But we sat here a couple of months ago and we were wondering how much business would be done this summer. I don't think either of us thought the spending would be on this level. Now, those who were here will testify that we both said, just go out and sign Granit Xhaka. It's the obvious transfer this summer. It's right there in front of you. Just go and get it done. So we were right about that, which obviously is nice. Who, when they first saw the tweet that we were trying to sign Granit Xhaka, thought it was a load of rubbish? Yeah. Has it surprised you how much has been spent this summer? Has it gone beyond what you expected? Because I thought it would be about 100 million probably. I thought they would invest in 4 or 5 players who would come straight into the team. But I have to say, I didn't think it would be quite as, I don't know if ruthless is quite the right word, but I think we've seen from the selection over the last couple of weeks that it has been ruthless. And that's surprising. I guess it's also exciting as well. I feel more optimistic than I did when we did the last one, because we were all still on a bit of a buzz after Wembley, but I was sitting there thinking, you look at what's happened to the teams the last 2 seasons who've gone up, and we're coming from further behind them. But actually, when you look at potentially the starting 11 on Saturday, I mean, there's a hell of a lot of talent. We've already seen that, haven't we, in pre-season?
It has surprised me. I mean, I think we had this conversation at the end of last season. Like you say, we thought maybe 5 or 6 players coming in, and we sort of suggested if you're going to make a fist of it, you've got to be spending around the 20 million pounds, euros. Makes no difference really, does it? That sort of area, which is what they've been doing. That seems to be generally what they've been spending, around 20 million euros on individuals. But they bought in, was it 10 now, 11? And there's more to come. So we're not, it's probably going to be nearer. It's like Paolo Di Fanti, isn't it? But the quality's a little higher. But because he bought in 14, didn't he, in January? But it looks as though it's going to be nearer 14 or 15 players that come in. But we had the conversation again yesterday. They need it. They need that strength in depth. You need, which is quite interesting in one. I mean, what do we learn from yesterday's game? That second 11 yesterday is not strong enough. So it does need greater strength and depth. So you do need to bring in those extra players so that your bench is starting to look as though you can. I'm not saying necessarily you can bring on a Lefebvre, because he will probably start next weekend, but you can bring on a player of quality off the bench that can change a game if you need to in the Premier League. Because at the moment, your bench is going to be your Dan Neils, Patrick Roberts, and whilst they are good players, can they come on in the Premier League and change a game? I'm not sure. I don't know yet. We haven't seen them. We've not given them. I'm got to give them the benefit of the doubt, because we've not seen them at this level on a weekly basis, only in cup games. So it's important that that the club has put their hands in their pockets, and they've done it. I mean, if you think about it, they've been. I suppose it's a very business-like thing to do. They know they're going to get what, £200 million roughly over the season in television payments and everything else that goes with it. So they're sort of bringing in players against the backdrop that the money's there to pay for them if needs be. And on top of that, a number of the players will be paid for over the length of the contracts. So that's going to be that money's spread out to a certain degree as well. So it makes sort of financial sense for the club to do it, but it also makes sense for the club to do it if they're realistic about staying in the Premier League. They've had to do it. I think it was a must.
So we've talked about defence for Saturday. What about midfield? Because you've just said there you think Enzo will start. I'm having sleepless nights because I'm not sure he will start. I'm starting to get a little bit worried. What do you think about that? Because if we said when we sat here a couple of months ago that Enzo's place might be a little bit in doubt, I don't think we would have believed that.
Benno, I and Rob Mason had a long conversation about this yesterday. If you're going to play Siddiqui, Diarra, Lefay and Xhaka, how do you fit the four into the team? The one player you might sacrifice at the moment is probably Lefay because of their sort of wrapping him a bit in cotton wool at the moment. One way of getting him in, because I still think there might be a little bit of a worry, or not a worry, but is Taulby, is he quite up to it yet on the right wing? So there is a scenario, Lefay plays on the left wing, Adingra goes to the right wing, you put both Siddiqui and Diarra in, and Xhaka plays the 10. So you can accommodate all four players, because there's going to be this equation when if Lefay gets up to speed and you want him in the team, who do you leave out? And at the moment, Taulby for me in the midfield is the weak link. I think of the new players that have come in, I like him. He's got talent, unquestionably, and he shows moments. But I'm not quite sure he's the player at the moment for that right hand side. He's not going to start with Roberts, so Taulby may well start. But I do wonder if Taulby might get sacrificed at the weekend for Lefay on the left and Adingra on the right. But
I feel it's interesting with Régis because he does like to spring a surprise and he does like to play games a little bit, I think, which is to his credit. So I still think there's a chance Enzo plays. But I think, to be fair, I think it's credit to Siddiqui as well, isn't it? Because I think he's the one, you'll have all watched pre-season, I think he's probably the one who has surprised us the most in terms of you look at him as a young player, maybe not thinking he's going to come in as a starter, but I think, especially alongside Xhaka, who is unbelievable. Granted, Xhaka plays for Sunderland, still just incredible. I think we should say, cheers Tommy Watson, lad. But he's still incredible on the ball. I mean, I'd be amazed if we're not sitting here this time next year saying he's as good as, if not the best player we've seen in a Sunderland shirt, because that's what his qualities are. But it's in possession, isn't it? He's not a Makalele. He's not that traditional. So I think Siddiqui maybe, especially early on in the season where you want to box a little bit clever, might be someone you have to pick, because I love his attitude as well.
Well, Xhaka was peerless against Betis. I don't think he wasted a ball all afternoon. But it's simple. He just picks it up, lays it off, picks it up, lays it off, picks a pass, works box to box, and you can tell he's a leader. You can tell he's a captain. You can tell that his influence on the team. So there is that will rub off on other players as well. There are younger players like Taulby and the young players they brought who will learn from Xhaka. Having him on the training pitch with them is that's another big plus from the signing. But with Xhaka, in watching him play, as I say, he was peerless, wasn't he? I mean, he's a massive player for them. I mean, it looks as though he's not one of those players that is injury prone. Touch wood. Commentators.
I can't believe you said that on camera as well.
But there are players like that, aren't there? Trey Hume's another one. You look at Trey Hume and you look at the way he tackles and the way how robust he is. And yet others, as brittle as they come. So, but Xhaka does appear to be one of those. He's a bit of a warrior. I'm not going to liken him to Lee Cattermole because they're two different sort of players and characters. But Cattermole had that about him. He had that ability on the whole. To Kevin Ball, here's another one. So that it's in that sort of trait of players. But he's going to be a massive player for Sunderland.
So, how do you feel about where the team has got to on the eve of the season? Because I actually feel pretty good, to be honest, in terms of I think most of the 11 who's going to start, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. Clearly, we've talked about some of the positions that we think probably still need strengthening. But how do you feel the team's shaping up? It's really difficult because it's been so long since we've been in the Premier League. It feels that there's this fear at the back of my mind that after 20 minutes it's going to be like, oh, God, this league's pretty good.
I know exactly.
I feel pretty positive.
I know exactly what you mean.
Otherwise.
I mean, I do feel positive because the signings have been good. Pre-season's been good on the whole. I haven't sort of judged them by results. I looked at the table the other day to look at which three teams do I think are worse or potentially worse than Sunderland, and that table terrifies me because in the 8 years that they've been out of the Premier League, teams like Brentford and Brighton and Bournemouth, they have grown exponentially to the teams that they were, those sort of teams 10 years ago. And it's difficult to argue that even a Wolves, with all their problems and losing players, they've still taken it to another level. And Sunderland, for all that we're optimistic and the team's coming together, they've got great players, good players. This opening game, I think, is going to be real. It's either going to be a real eye opener, or we're going to come away from that thinking, we'll be all right. This will be okay.
It's scary because we used to be the basket case. The promoted teams thought we'll finish above them, and we're not now.
Well, I actually think it's quite interesting that Newcastle fans, they're in meltdown, and part of the meltdown is the fact that Sunderland are buying all these players, and all of a sudden the belief is that Sunderland are actually going to be better than Newcastle next season. So there is that sort of fans of other clubs will be looking at what Sunderland have done and be thinking, oh, maybe this is the club that is going to buck the trend. Maybe they're going to stay up. Maybe we're going to get one of the three that come up actually stay up. I said the other afternoon, I think it was the Real Betis game. After that game, they lost 1-0, played okay. I thought the football was fine, but they lost 1-0. I said to Benno walking out, I said, what worries me is I don't want after 3 or 4 games to be walking away from games going, they've played really well. I really like what they're doing, but they've lost 1-0 because of a moment's lack of concentration or a stupid goal, or because that for me is, it's almost like a death by 1,000 cuts, isn't it? It's like, wow, we love them, they're fantastic, but they're not winning any games, they're not picking up any points.
Well, I thought, even though he put a penalty into Rosette, I thought Meander was excellent on Saturday, and I think he's going to score on Saturday. So you heard that. You heard that here first. Meander is scoring. Is
this your Benno moment, is it?
Meander is scoring on Saturday. Before we send people off for pizza, let's have a look at some of the questions that the people sent in before. So we've got the first one here, which I'll throw at you first, which Chris sent in, which is, which of the Championship squad do you think will shine the most in the Premier League?
Well, brutally honest, I don't think many of them will be in the team. Ballard and Hume are the two that you'd look at predominantly because they are going to start. Meander, I agree with you with Meander, and a lot of people have spoken about Meander. I think he'll have a good season. I think there's a real player there. I think this might be his time. He's lost weight. He's quick. He's brave. He likes to take players on. Part of the problem with not scoring goals is not getting the service. If they can get the service sorted, get the ball to him, he will get goals. But Trey Hume, is his character, the way that he's carried himself over the last year and a half, 2 years since he arrived. He's going to go far. I think the fact that he's now got the captaincy of the Northern Ireland team and has walked into international football as though it's something he's been playing for years. I think that's a very, very good marker for Sunderland that Hume, he'll be okay in the Premier League. He'll be absolutely fine. Ballard will be fine because he's a very, very good centre-half. My only fear with Ballard is is this issue with injuries, that how long will he last?
I think Ballard's going to be the one this year because the big difference this year, he's had a full pre-season, and I feel like he's always been playing catch-up the last couple of years. And I think if you watch him in pre-season, he looks unbelievable. I think he's going to shine this year because he's going to be heading a lot of crosses away and he's going to be making a lot of last-ditch blocks and a lot of last-ditch tackles. But I also think what's really noticeable over the last sort of 6 months, a year, is how much he's improved in possession. I know this was something you spoke with Tony Mowbray about, wasn't it, in terms of Mowbray really working with Ballard in terms of his composure and when the ball comes, don't just kick it away, get it down, start an attack. I think he's improved so much. I think he's one who we're going to be talking about. I am quite excited because I think from what I've seen today, Hume, Ballard, Alderete and Reynildo is I think there's just going to be tackles flying absolutely everywhere. I think VAR is going to go into overdrive. But I'm here for it because I think we're going to have that mentality, that spirit last year, which actually, to be fair, we saw in the playoffs. I think there's going to be a lot of games where we don't have a lot of the ball and it's going to be backs to the wall. I think I've got a feeling that might just actually suit us and suit the mentality of this squad.
Well, that was something Benno was talking about yesterday afternoon, and it's difficult to apply it to the team that played against Augsburg because it's two different games. But this lack of the ball, there'll be Benno's quite right. There'll be games where Sunderland have 20% possession. They just won't get to the ball. They won't see the ball, and it's what they do with it when they do have it. And it's clearly what they, how they defend when they haven't got the ball, because they're going to be under a lot of pressure from a lot of teams. It comes back to, I think, initially, I think Régis has sort of touched on it as well, that if you've got your defence sorted out, and that defence, if it is as solid as we hope it is, if they don't concede goals, then they do only have to win games 1-0. They don't have to be a high-scoring team. It's going to be an eye opener. We don't know to a certain extent what to expect. We all watch the Premier League year in, year out, with half an eye on it, thinking, well, when are they going to be back in that league? And now they're there. And I said to Régis yesterday, it's all well and good watching all these players in pre-season, and they're all talented. They're all technically gifted, and we know we hope what they can offer. But until they run out on Saturday and kick a ball, we just don't know. We don't know how they're going to react to playing at this level, because none of them, apart from Xhaka, have really... they've played top-flight football in Europe, and they played Champions League. Some of them played Europa League and whatever. But most of them have never played... They've never kicked a ball in the Premier League, so we just don't know how they're going to react to that.
OK, is everyone all right if we do another couple of questions before the break? Yeah. I have a very weak bladder, so I find it's always best to check. We've got a question here from Joe, who says, great news about Le Bris's new contract, especially after his unforgettable first season with us. Do you think he will have the full backing from the club for the whole season, irrespective of results, or might he be another one of those clubs where he's replaced by Christmas?
Well, it's a results-driven business, isn't it? If it does turn out that it's by November, December that it's gone belly up, knowing the way that Kirill's worked in the past, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he pulled the trigger. But I do think that Régis has got people around him that will protect him to a degree. But I think ultimately, looking at the money they spent and their determination to stay, they've invested too much in it for it to go wrong. If you see what I mean, I think Régis is not Teflon if it's not working, and he'll know that he'd accept it. I think he's in the same way that Tony Mowbray was absolutely right. He always used to say to us, "Oh, it's fantastic, I can get you promoted, but if I've lost the first 10 games, I'll get sacked." And he had no bones about it. He said they'll sack me. And I think Régis will be... there's a lot of Tony in Régis. And I think Régis Le Bris will have much the same mindset.
I think I would be a little bit... I think he has a better chance than most managers who bring a team up from the Championship of staying the course. I think for a few reasons. One is that I think you can actually see why Sunderland have been really ambitious, and maybe surprisingly so. I think they've deliberately spent most of the money on much younger players, and the obvious upside of that is once they've had a year's Premier League experience, if the worst comes to the worst, you can claw a lot of that money back, and in some cases you might even make a profit. And I still think that Sunderland's view will be that if we come back down in the Championship, Régis is the best man to take us back up. So I think that he's in a much stronger position than most managers when teams get promoted. I think as long as Sunderland are very competitive, and I think they will be, I think they will do their level best to stick by him. And I think his position internally is pretty strong. He has a much stronger voice. I think it's clear than many of his predecessors have.
It's clear he's got a voice in terms of transfers, which Tony didn't have before, and so on. I do wonder as well, there's also the issue of, if you get rid of him, who do you replace him with? It's not exactly, how they've struggled to find a head coach over the last couple of years. It's clearly not... they're not queuing up in terms of the profile that they want and the direction they want to travel. So I mean, hopefully, it all works. And the thing is, the other side of that about Régis Le Bris, if it does work, he's then going to be courted by other clubs. He's going to be up there, and other clubs will be saying, "Oh, hang on a minute, here's a manager, head coach." And he's ambitious. He's someone who's clearly over the last few years, he's got his career path, and the Premier League is part of that. And there's no doubt, at the moment, he'd love it to be Sunderland, and he'd love to achieve massive success with Sunderland. But knowing how he works and who he is and how driven he is, who knows if a top 6 club or something came knocking on the door.
Nah, he loves it here. He'll turn them down.
Loves a pink slice.
He loves Sunderland, man. Don't be daft. Okay, so Dave says, you've talked about who may start on Saturday, but who could come on after 60 or 70 minutes to change the game if needed? This is going to be really interesting because my suspicion is that if Guillou didn't play yesterday, and he's still not in full training, he's not going to be ready to play much part on Saturday. Rig and Isadora have not had very much match time at all. Part of me wonders if there's a little bit of a reason why Lefay is being kept back, because there's not actually many other match fit players who can make an impact from the bench. And I do wonder if that's part of the thinking there. And the Roberts one is really interesting because I think Talby will start on Saturday. Everything that's happened so far in pre-season would suggest that's going to be the case. And I think he looks like a really talented boy, but he looks like the most inexperienced of all the summer signings so far. And I can't see him playing 90 minutes. So I think Pipe Roberts is going to have a massive chance to come off the bench and make an impact, which is interesting because he's not had as much sort of prominence or game time as any of us thought he would this pre-season. But looking at the actual bodies that we have at the moment for Saturday, for this coming weekend, for me, it's going to be Lefay and Roberts, I think.
I wouldn't argue against that. I mean, there's some talented players in the sort of under-21s. I was impressed with Tutirov yesterday, and he's nowhere near sort of going to be first choice by any stretch of the imagination. But I thought him and Alexic, when they came on against Rayo, who were a good, very good technical team, they, shone compared to the players that had been on the previous 70 minutes or whatever it was. And what I've seen of Tutirov in pre-season, I've liked, and he's clearly still in the pre-season squad for a reason, because they feel there's something about him, even though is he 18 yet? He's 17 or 18, isn't he? I don't know if he's... Frankie, do you know if he may be 18, but he's certainly still young. So, players like that, now that we've seen Chris Rigg burst onto the scene, at 17, and we've seen other Premier League teams blooding players of 16, 17, 18. It's not beyond the realms of possibility now that even a team like Sunderland will put 17, 18-year-olds on the bench and bring them on, because the quality of the players now and the way they've advanced over the last few years in the academies and things, these are good technical players, and for 10, 15 minutes in a game, you just never know. I just think, and like I say, the bench at the moment is not looking exactly, it's not bulging with, Premier League quality. So, who knows?
So Tutierov scoring the winner. You heard it.
Well,
first.
Tommy
definitely
Watson.
What you just said.
So Tutierov, you heard it here first.
Tommy Watson. Cheers to Tommy Watson, by the way. What a guy. Okay, we've got a question here from Dan who says, do you think there will be any signings for the future this window similar to Hume, Mienda? I mean, I think that probably not that many, because I think, to be honest, a lot of these lads are already in the building. I think that you've got that core of Sealed, Triantis, Abdullahi, Alexic. I think all these guys will go out on loan.
Don't forget Mundle when he's back.
I think these guys will go out on loan, and Sunderland will take the view that we'll give it another year, and if the worst comes to the worst and we end up in the Championship, these guys might be ready to be part of our team. But if not, then if we're still in the Premier League, we can potentially make a profit on them. So
Tutirov.
Tutirov scoring the winner on Saturday. Well, yeah. There'll be all sorts of rumours once he scores the winners on Saturday. But yeah, I think that work has kind of already been done. I think Talby has been one who's more bought for the long term than the immediate season. I think Le Bris has been very clear that he wants another winger because he feels that it's still early days for Talby. So I think we'll get another winger who can play both sides. Obviously, Loriente was someone who could play up front, left wing, right wing. That was why Le Bris pushed really hard to sign him. So I think we'll get another player of that. So I think Talby's one for the long term.
And also, I think the Mundle injury was part of the reason.
That was definitely part of the reason why they went for it. So I think this window has been really different to the last few. I think you've seen them go for slightly more experienced older players. So I don't think there'll be too much of that. I think they already feel like they have that undercurrent of players who can come in the future. But we'll see. You never know.
Why are you going to throw at me now?
Nick, is it true that Radio Newcastle is biased? No, it's not.
Well, I had plenty of arguments, don't worry about
it. Mickey says, we seem to be well stocked for left backs now, but would you also want a right back in the door? Hume is great, but very much plays on the edge and would be vulnerable to suspension if his tackles are mistimed.
I've been surprised the last couple of windows that they haven't actually looked for another right back. I think last season, a few times in the windows, I said to Regis, "Are you not looking for a right back?" Because of the Hume situation, if he was injured or he was at the point when he was picking up yellow cards, if he was suspended, they didn't have a natural. I think the feeling was that O'Nien could play at right back, and they did have players that could move across and play right back, but they had no natural outlet. I mean, okay, now they're looking at Huggins is back in the frame, and hope he comes up to speed and everything goes well with his sort of have come back, and so he's a natural right back. So they, in one sense, they have got cover, but it's not certain that Huggins is going to. He's been out for nearly 2 years with chronic injuries that he's had. I am surprised they've not actually.
But they've got to manage this carefully because they won't give Trey Hume a new contract, which he absolutely deserves. Trey Hume has interest from other clubs. So Trey Hume has to be our starting right back this season, which he absolutely deserves, no question about that. But it's really, you've got to be really careful how you bring the players in beyond that. My suspicion is that Luke O'Nien will probably be seen as cover in the right back position when he's fit again. And I suspect maybe now Huggins will stay for the season because I think where he's been at with his injuries, I think it just makes sense for him to train regularly. Or we might just do what Sunderland normally do and just convert a centre midfielder into a right back.
Well, and
so Milan Alexic might be Sunderland's new right back.
the way they're all playing, the number of positions they've all played, Harrison Jones will probably play there, but also actually Jensen Seal in the past has played right back. So, whether he stays or goes out on loan, but he's another player that they have used him as a right back, so maybe they feel they've just got enough options to cover.
I wouldn't be surprised if they signed one, but I think possibly a centre-half who can fill in at right back. I think they want to give... I think Hume's the man, and they'll want to try and protect that. But I think... Listen, we all know Luke O'Nien. He's going to end up at the team. It might be a right back, it might be left back, it might be up front. Might be in goal.
Yeah.
He's desperate for it. We'll wait and see. So we got a question here from Bill who says, is Chris Rigg fifth in a three-man midfield? Will he get minutes? Or is Dan Neil fifth? So I think this is really interesting because Dan Neil is obviously competing with Xhaka, and I think it's fairly clear that he's okay-ish with that for now. I think he's obviously going to learn a lot from Xhaka, and I think in the long term potentially still has a part to play. Rigg, obviously, we've seen play on the right of that midfield three. Habib Diarra is obviously going to be the man in possession now. That's not a problem at the moment because Rigg isn't fit yet. He's only had 60 minutes the whole of pre-season. But it's a really interesting question, isn't it, about the balance between giving these young players opportunities but also making sure you have a squad that's ready to win on Saturday.
Well, I was thinking about that today in terms of the League Cup, because in a few weeks' time they'll have a League Cup game, and that will be the sort of second string, won't it? Because he's not going to risk the first team in that. And I then thought, well, how much are the club invested in having a run in the Cups this season? It's all well and good saying, the aim is, the priority is clearly to stay in the Premier League. But you've got a squad of players who want game time. And I think it's an ideal opportunity to give that squad a run in the League Cup and the FA Cup and say, right, look, you are the cup teams and you can... And so the Patrick Roberts, Dan Neils, Chris Riggs, they will all play in those cup competitions. And I think it's a big opportunity... for Sunderland to sort of, have a run in a cup and make a name for themselves in that respect as well. So Rig, I said earlier about, if he's 18 now, if you're good enough, you're young enough, or whatever the phrase is, I don't necessarily see he won't get game time, but he's not going to be first choice. So he'll be on the bench, and he might be one of those players that comes on for 15, 20 minutes. I think he'll get game time.
I think the thing is, last season as well, we talked loads and loads, and people saying all the time, especially through the first sort of 3 quarters of the season, about Régis not making enough subs and not changing the game enough from the bench and being too reliant on a small core. And I think that a lot of what's happening at the moment is geared towards correcting that. And I think the gauntlet has been set down to last year's players, really, to say that we trust you, you're going to get game time, you're going to get opportunities, but we're also bringing in top level players, and you have to hit that level. And to be fair, I think Riggs in the same category as Dan Neil is that.
I think
he will get minutes because this is one of the guys. They think this is one of the best young players in the country, so they're going to give him minutes. But I think, especially given his pre-season minutes, it's going to take some time. I think
you've got to give players some credit as well. Aji Elise was, I understand, is prepared to go out on loan or leave, because he's basically said, I've got nothing against the club, I love it here, and it's fantastic what's happening, but the players that the club are bringing in are like on another level, so he's not going to get game time. So I think players aren't daft. I think a lot of there will be a few that feel that they should be in the team, and they should, their egos will say that they should be number one. But I think the majority of them will feel, look at the quality of the players that are coming in now. When a Xhaka comes in, you can't argue about Granit Xhaka as his CV, his record. And even Adingra and those players, they played in the Premier League. They've got Premier League experience, which this current Sunderland, the squad that came up, hasn't. So it's pragmatism, isn't it? And football, as we said before, is brutal. And if you're going to stay in the Premier League, the club's going to do everything within its power to make sure they're making the right decisions about the players that play.